Welcome back to the Just Because podcast, a podcast about all things cosplay and life. It's Jeremy. I'm back again. Sorry for the delay, but we've got some wonderful special guests here today. If you guys are in the scene, you probably would have seen them around. They've been on stages, they've been on billboards, they've been in newspapers, and they are most recently our WCS Australian representatives for 2025. I'm pretty sure I got the year right.
Yeah.
But thank you for joining us, and welcome to the podcast, Lucy and Elle.
Hello. Thank you so much.
Okay, first things first. How are you doing? How are you feeling? You guys are going to be flying to Japan probably this time next year.
Yeah.
Wearing your Sunday best, flying an Australian flag on your back, handing out little Freddo frogs, hopefully not melted, to everybody. But how are you feeling? Your first time in Japan? Are you excited? You're nervous? What's running through your minds?
It'll be my first time in Japan, which is kind of nuts. Lucy, your third?
It'll be my fourth time in Japan. Yeah, super exciting.
So you guys been to Nagoya before, or it's gonna be like?
Yeah, never Nagoya. I've been to Tokyo and I've been to Osaka, so it's like the two like main cities. But this is my first time in Nagoya. But like overall, I'm like super excited to go. It honestly doesn't feel real. Like when we got given the big cards that say you're going to Nagoya, I was like, oh, cool, that's funny. And then for the since I just had this like insane build up, like you know what it's like you're just working every single day on your cosplay or your skit, and you're like you go to your regular human job and then you come home and then you just work, and it's like that for like 2 months. So when I came back from Smash, I was really sick. I got really bad con crud. And then I just went into hermit mode. So I was like, no one talk me, no work. Like all of my like stuff from WCS is in the boxes in the spot in the garage that they were when we like got back in from Sydney. And I'm like, I don't want to think about anything. So for the last month, I've just been playing Baldur's Gate and pretending that the outside world doesn't exist.
Me too! Oh my god!
Yeah. So this is like my first actual day of like, oh yeah, WCS is real.
Yeah.
So this is like re-traumatizing me.
Oh, sorry. Well, we can end the podcast here. Nice talking, guys. It's great. No, that's fantastic. So you guys haven't really had to think too far ahead. Just like, all right, let's take a moment to just not think about cosplay or do anything.
Recoup. Last week we got together to watch this year's finals and the Osu parade and the red carpet. We watched all of that in one night and like binged it and like kind of started getting the brain juices flowing because as you know, the way that the competition runs in Japan is so much different from the way that they do it at Smash.
Yeah.
And we're kind of like, okay, we need to rejig the skit. We need to think, what do I want things to be better? Like, how do I want to improve? And like, we're just starting to get the chemicals, the neurons firing to like make those decisions.
So you guys have kind of already decided you're going to reuse what you've done this time around and use it in Japan as well, just like what we did.
Yeah, it was always the strategy, was always the intention that if we won with this skit, we knew it would work. We knew we could improve upon it, considering like what just physical limitations that we have just on our stage, like by the screen and stuff like that, it was gonna have to change regardless. But that means we can improve upon it.
Yeah.
So like we've proven it works. We like it. We enjoy it. And we're proud of our costumes, and it gives us a chance to like change and update things that we know that can be better.
Yeah.
Rather than the stress of just doing this all again next year. I think after 2 years straight of WCS, I think we're both real excited to just have a breath, but like mean it. Like not have to be like, cool, I can be good for like normal for a month and then be back into 6 to 9 months of just straight stress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which of course is mostly just self-imposed. Like, honestly, it's just us stressing ourselves out.
I think I think once you guys get over there, the hhard work that you've put in is going to be shown, and hopefully it's going to be one of those things. You just go to. Because you're going to be like celebrities over there. They're going to say, all right, you guys, you're going to have to wear this and you're going to go to this event. And you're like, okay, I guess I'll do it. So, by that stage, it's just going to be, all right, let's just wear whatever we want to wear and pose and be pretty and do all these kinds of things. So,
Yeah, it's actually a bit hard to like pick what we're going to wear. We keep having like we both have really similar tastes for stuff outside of anime, but like inside anime, we were like completely different.
This
so
one?
we're
No.
so we're like, oh, I'm like,
This
I'll
one?
do it for you.
Yeah.
Like, so we're like. We've had the list of what we're going to be doing approximately, and we're like, how do I pick? Like, how did you guys pick? Like, what you did?
Good question. It's very similar, very similar. It's like, all right, what are some things that we both mutually like? After that, cross off the ones that are not appropriate for summer weather. So that cleaves the list in half pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And after that, because as much as we said, it's like, oh, our costumes are done, our skit's done, we're ready to go kind of thing. There's always something just leading up in the months before. It's like, oh no, I want to remake this, I want to rejig this. And because that's where most of your focus is, everything else gets put on the back foot. So if you've already got something in mind, which you're like, yeah, we really like this series, we really want to do it. Other things to consider as well is like, oh, what's hot and popping in Japan right now?
Yeah, true.
Because it definitely makes a bit of a difference. Because we did Oshinoko over in Japan when it was like, oh wow, this is fresh and popular, and people love that. It's a mistake wearing jackets in summer, but it was.
I remember watching your red carpet, and you were wearing like the full uniform suit, and Marmalade also had like that jacket and like the big wig.
When we took it off, it was just like an ocean came out. It was not great. But no, because there were quite a few Oshinoko cosplayers just in the public there as well. So
that's cute.
It was a really good pick for us. But same thing, people were like, let's wear this classic back from the 80s, and there's some oldies there who'd like it kind of thing, but end of the day, it's whatever you guys feel like you want to walk down the red carpet in and be happy in. And
if someone asks me questions, I need to know what the answers are.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's actually we were talking about how I feel like on average, I think everyone who enters WCS and competes at the Nagoya competition, I think most people are in like a similar age demographic where we all remember, like, we all do like One Piece and like Pokemon and like really classic stuff from like our like early anime fandom. Like, we'll always see like Black Butler stuff there. Like, I think it's cute, and I think that we all kind of mutually know what's going on. Sometimes I feel like such a boomer in this community. I'm like, I don't know.
We've aged a little bit outside of
the biggest surprise actually was the demographic of the competitors there, because I think an overwhelming majority of people there were late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I guess that's an experience thing as well. Like, it's just you need the confidence and the experience and like the technical know-how to at least even enter WCS. I don't know exactly about every other country, but that seems to be quite similar from the people that we've spoken to that's going to be in our year. We've got, I think, four of us so far that have been announced, and we're talking.
I think too,
I think we're all the same age range.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? Because you would have had to have done cosplay for long enough to be like, wow, this is fun. Yeah, I want to enter a competition. Yeah, I'm actually getting better at doing competitions. And by the time you get to that skill level and you kind of know what you're doing, you probably would be mid-late 20s at that time. I think if you did see someone who was, I don't know, a teenager or late 20s, you'd definitely be a bit of an outlier. There, so.
Oh yeah, they would be flexing on all of us.
I'd be like, you're scary. Like, how good are you? Oh god.
Also, the time and money investment of WCS is something that like unspoken truth about it. It's like, it's so expensive and it takes up so much time that like you kind of need to be a fully fledged adult that can say, I'm about to drop some cash on some fabric and like really
and be okay with it.
And be okay with it and still survive. And like, you go to work and you do your big boy job, and then you come home and you're just like, I will now do nothing but this. And then like the level of dedication as well is like a huge demand.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of people don't really realize until they start doing competitions, just the amount of demand it does take on both your wallet and your brain and your friendships and your everything else like that.
Oh god, yes. My fiance, she was like, when we were packing up the car to go to Sydney, she turned to me and she was like, this is gonna be your last time for a little bit, right? And it wasn't a question, it was like, this is gonna be your last one for a little bit. And I was like, yeah, you're right, because she sees me work myself to the bone. And she also helped like a lot of our friends get to the WCS finish line. She helped Ingrid and Alex during their WCS year. So she's been through the wars when it comes to it. She was like, that's enough. And then when I won, I was like, another year!
Another one!
And another one.
All the more reason not to remake something.
Yeah, well, it's definitely coming from a place of love and concern. Just like, you know, I care about you, don't like... But I think it's one of those things, too, because you probably would have had... I know my parents did it to me. You know, your parents probably would have done the same thing in that they just look at you stressing and worrying and, you know, having a bit of a mentee bee on a bad day, and they're just worried about you. They're like, why do you put yourself through this? You know, why are you going through this? But it's not something you can really explain. You can't really explain to someone who's, unless they've been in the trenches, who, you know, you love it. You really want to go up there and do it, no matter what you're going through. So
yeah,
totally.
But now that you guys are kind of in that position and getting ready to go there, you guys, you know, you've joining this cool little club in which, you know, it's like, wow, I've been an Australian rep. Have you had any, I guess, let's say, apart from all the congratulations messages you would have gotten, any, like, people already saying, it's like, wow, you guys have inspired me, I'm looking up to you, and you're the reason I'm entering next year, and have you guys gotten any of those yet?
Yeah, totally. Do you have any stories you want to share, or?
Not that I can think of. I mean, it was like a lot of teams that we were competing against this year have come back to us to do the whole, like, you guys were so good, and like you've made me want to do things better for next year. Like we've been getting a lot of that.
That's cool.
Not so much from outside of it just yet, but I think it's still early days. Like it's like what, a month? Not even since we competed. Yeah, I mean, not at all.
Like for me, yeah, like I think because like as soon as the competition ended, I had it in my mind that I really wanted to go down to the convention hall and actually look at the artist alley, and I only had 2 hours to do it. So we got our cards, and I went, see ya, and I like ran downstairs to go and look for trinkets. And when I was down there, like so many like people coming up to me being like, and they'd have a photo, like a blurry ass stage photo of myself crying, and they'd be like, you know, like, I really want to do this next year. Like, I saw your skit, and, like, people said, like, I didn't even realize that I could enter One Piece into WCS. And, like, we both entered last year, and, like, it was the same feedback. Like, oh, I want to do this, and I want to enter One Piece. Like, I didn't think that, like, it would be possible. But, like, after seeing you guys do it, I'm like, maybe it's something that I could do. Because there's been some pretty insane years of, like, crazy engineering and like backflips and like people doing like the splits and like the trapeze, like Cirque du Soleil. So I feel like that kind of thing can be quite intimidating, but like just a base, like this is a cosplay skit, we're just doing it, like this very like, I don't know, like it's hard to, like, how do you say it? Like, it's like the stuff that we pull out is very like functional, achievable. You don't need to have an 8-pack and do a backflip sort of thing, or you don't need to know like engineering or those little things. Like, this is just like
bare bones.
Yeah, this puppet that I hold up, or like even like with yourself, like with with your skit with like the big stilts, you could be like, I could like get in, I could do that. Like it feels like you can see certain, or like I didn't even think to do something like that, but like it's so simple, it's so effective, like a puppet, or like the effect that you guys have with like the gun and like the bullets coming out, and they go, oh yeah, like I that is like, I can see how that works. That's like that's a theater technique. That is like something that I could practice myself, and I can like translate that back. And it's that sort of feedback that we really got with people saying that like, this looks so cool, and like I'm so passionate about that anime too, and I also think that I could bring it to stage. That feels really rewarding.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, because I think it's a lot of it is, you know, as time goes by, someone comes up with some cool idea, and someone's like, oh, I'm gonna take that idea and incorporate it, and then someone else introduces something else new, and you know, as the years go by, there's just all these different elements which someone else thought of the year before, and they bring it in. But as years have gone by, as we've also learnt. There's some things like, oh, we need to include that in the rules because that's too dangerous. So it's always, you know, pushing the boundaries and come up with something new. So I think it's kind of interesting in that way.
Yeah, this year was like hugely evident with that, with the big fans. Like, spoilers for this year's competition. I'm so sorry. The fans in Team Japan's costumes that inflated that huge I'm not a Naruto fan, but they're like creatures that were behind them. I'm like, this is like,
the guys.
It's so simple. Like, it makes so much sense. Oh my god, I can't believe I haven't thought of this before. Like, and like maybe next year will be the year of like people saying, I will also have fans in my costume, and this will inflate.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna bring a big noodle man onto stage. Just gonna.
If I don't see that next year, I'm gonna be so disappointed. We'll bully one of the teams into doing it. We can do that. You should do this. Yeah.
Good idea. Bring it on. Why didn't I do
That's
that?
what is next year.
Now, running it all the way back, because you guys, I know, have been in the competitive scene for a few years. I've been on the judging panel for some of your guys' competitions before as well. But you've always entered, with either individually or with different partners. What kind of made this collaboration between the two of you happen together?
Oh, I love this story. It's so funny. We competed in separate teams last year. Lucy was with Celeste and I was with Cassidy. Cassidy was a sweet ringing. Was just like, I'll do it with you, sweetie. I'm like, thank you. So they were helping me with my dream to do it again.
Yeah.
Because I competed in 2018, and just pandemic and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Massive gap in comps, and I missed it. And it was really fun. And again, like watching you guys, and then watching like Nat and Tiger compete. I was like, oh, I miss it. I want to do it again. But it was just like, oh, it's like really last minute finding someone. They saved my butt. But then right after we finished, we got off stage. Lucy and Sally had gotten third place, and it was so cool. We were so excited. But we walked out, and then Lucy like grabbed my hand. She's like, "What are we doing next year?" I went, "Okay."
That's a bit cute.
So yeah.
Elle has this like insane competitive history with so many like amazing achievements, and is just this like amazing cosplayer. When we actually like first met, we were doing Overwatch together, and I got introduced to Elle by my friend Rinya, and I was like, oh, like they're just so cool. Like I don't even know if like I can even be in their presence. They're so cool. So I've always looked up to this one for a really long time, and I actually, this WCS competition is only the second competition I've ever entered.
Yeah, wow.
I entered like a really casual walk-on Supernova competition when I was a teenager, but like for like actual, there we are, Overwatch.
Look at that, look at you guys.
It's like, I have this ready to rumble. I'm like, I know where this is.
So I don't really have, I actually like WCS, like the time that I entered last year was like my first competition, and then this one was my like second time ever competing.
Right.
I've been around in the scene for so long, and I've been around people who've entered and like been backstage, been with people. Like I can understand why it feels like I have like a bit more of a competitive legacy, but I really like don't. But I've just been in the scene and been like on stage a lot, but never in that kind of like they stand there and they pick apart your costume and like that kind of competition. So my inspiration like last year was like watching, like it was actually like my inspiration was watching you guys. I was that person, and I was thinking like, you guys like did this like skit, and like it's so like simple, it's so effective, and you're on stage and you're giving it, and I'm like, I'm on stage all the time. I could give this a go. Like this feels like something that I could also do. So after watching your year, is like I remember me and like all of us actually, you were there too, didn't you? We were all there like watching it, and we left and we were like, we should all enter next year. We should totally do this.
Oh, that's cute.
So we're, like literally you guys like inspired
restarted
us.
the bug. You made
you did.
So well, we just came fresh out of COVID. Similar thing. It was just like, oh, do you want to do this? It's like, I don't know, 3 months away. You want to whip something up? It's like, yeah, all right, why not?
It was a good year. Like I remember like all the I remember Pip's skit as well.
Yeah, me too. I quite like that
and Nick's skit as well. There was some really like strong stuff that year, but it was stuff that was so like, this is just like a beautiful, immaculately made costume, and like these, like the use of the screen was really coming through that year as well. Like it was a year that I was like, these techniques are like I know I can sew. Like I've been sewing for so long. I could do this. Like I just need to believe in myself the way that these guys believe in themselves. So we kind of like, we all like this big group of us were like, we're all going to enter next year. So, and then I came third last year, and I have like this bug, and I'm like, oh, I feel like that was so close. Like I feel like the adrenaline of winning third place last year was more inspiring in a way than coming first place this year.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, what do I do now? Like I've got it, so what next? Kind of thing. Is that how you're feeling?
So, yeah, like it was like, oh my god, I was so close, and like, oh, I know what I can do better, and I was like really like hyped up, and then Sally went to Japan for a year, and I said that we would definitely enter the next year after the year before. So we just like immediately turned to each other and were like, let's do this, like let's go.
I'm glad that you guys still find a lot of joy and fun in doing competitions in that way, because you know how much stress goes into it, you know how much time goes into it, you know how much time you actually get to spend at the convention when you're doing competitions. It's like, oh well, my whole weekend's gone because I gotta be backstage for this. I gotta do the pre-show recording for the competition, and by the end of it, I know some people who I've talked to as well, they're like, oh, went through that whole competition, the whole weekend, spent all this money, didn't place, didn't get an award, and like, oh man, what do I do with my life now, kind of thing. So for yourself, because you've both been in those positions, and I know, Lucy, you said before that getting third place was like, wow, no, I can do this. I want to aim for one better next time. And Elle, you've been in positions too where you've either won competitions or you've placed before, but the feeling of, oh, we didn't win this time around. How did you both kind of overcome that feeling of, it could have easily been, this sucked, I wasted my time, I put all this money into it and didn't get anywhere. What are your thoughts, or your, walk me through the process of what you guys, that goes through your mind when stuff like that happens that makes you want to kind of come back for more?
Well, I think with me it comes with the territory with my imposter syndrome. I don't tend to go into things expecting to win. That's just setting yourself up for failure. And like when you win, it still feels amazing. But I don't know. I think with me, I enjoy like competing. A lot of it is the community.
Okay.
Like I've made a lot of friends through competing. All of the people from this year, I wouldn't have met outside of the comp. Like we are all in like different spaces.
Yeah.
But it's brought us all together. Like we're all super friendly, and it's really sweet that we can all talk like after the comp and like and going over stuff. I think that's just how I've always come at it. I've just not been expecting to win. There's like times when you're like, I've got a big chance.
Yeah.
I'm definitely up there. I'm with the big boys, but try not to, buff myself up too much. Lucy came at it from the other side. She was like, we're manifesting. We're manifesting that we're winning. We're definitely going to win. It's not if we win, it's when we win. And I was like, yes, Lucy.
No, that's
/when. It's /when.
Yeah.
Because I feel like something like WCS is like, you don't like some people like I know that there are some people who enter WCS like just for fun. They're like, oh, it's whatever, like Matt Nisbet, like was absolute icon in the Brisbane community, like did like Mad Men, and they like just do skits like, this is just silly, this is for fun.
So good.
And they're so fun, they're great. And I mean, like for WCS, like you kind of enter with like, I do want to win. Like, I do want to represent Australia, and I'm like, want to work hard to do it. So I'm like, whenever we would talk about it, I'd be like, if/when, if we win, but when we win, like really putting yourself in a headspace of like, I want this a lot, and I'm like working hard to achieve it. And if I don't get it, then like, for me personally, like coming third, like is still such an amazing achievement to place and be recognized that way. But I'm also quite like, she's a Capricorn. Like I'm so competitive. I love to compete. I love to like. It always feels like it's like sport. Like and then you're watching someone else, and you're like, oh, this technique will win you these points, and oh no, like I couldn't I didn't lift this prop up high enough. I wonder how that's gonna pan out. Like the adrenaline, like the anxiety and the adrenaline is just as exciting for me as the like joy and like the fun that comes from it. Like I kind of like being under pressure, and I like things like really mattering and like continuing to count for stuff. And I love to like calculate, oh, if I do this, like how is that gonna come through? And whether or not I win is like, winning something kind of feel like finishing it feels more exciting than like winning or losing. So like coming third in the competition, even though I wasn't first place, I was like, yeah, but like when we did this skit, like you could see like this other team had this like amazing like electronic thing, and when they shot that like the gun and it lit up, like yes, absolutely, those points come in there. And then like when you're just like happy that when you lose to these people who've done all of these amazing tricks.
That does make it better.
And it makes it even better.
People above you. Like when I competed in 2018, the people that beat me were Kay and Will, and they went on to win the World Championship.
Yeah.
So you can't feel bad about losing to people who like beat everyone.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that does help. Yeah.
You get excited to
Yeah.
watch like other people, and like when the other teams do better than you, you're like, fuck yeah, they're slaying, they're doing it. Like, oh my god, I'm gonna do that. Like, it feels really satisfying, and I really love like I would say like when you get off stage after you've like executed everything, the like full body relief that washes over you is like
Oh
just
my
taking
God,
a really
yes.
good poo.
Yes!
Like, I've been working on this for
Release.
so long.
Sweet release.
Release, it's over. Like the unclenching feeling.
No.
It's like I bash my head against the wall and it feels good when I'm not bashing my head against the wall.
I mean, it's crazy because you've both been on stage so many times before, and you know what that feeling is like. It's like, oh, I can't eat today, or just have to make sure I just drink water. But you know, I don't think, just to correct me if I'm wrong, but you both don't really get stage fright. You're not just gonna like freeze up or forget what you're doing kind of thing. It's mostly just the adrenaline and the nerves having this weird mix in your body kind of thing.
It's usually like just before you go on, you're like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
And then you're on stage and you black out and it's fine.
And the moment's over. Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, oh, where am I?
most-
It's over? Okay.
The most anxiety-ridden part is the judging. As you know, as like you were probably in the, I know that the
You're watching
judging,
everyone shaking in their boots.
like the judging part of it, like when you guys were in Japan, was it like the big room with like the millions of judges,
Yeah.
or did they narrow it down?
God, ours, it was, God, that's a story in itself. I could actually tell this. I was wanting to tell this with mine, but we never went through the whole thing. But the judging room is, so do you know what the theatre looks like itself?
Yes.
So the theatre is,
Yeah.
it's like akin to QPAC. So it's quite a big theatre. But they've obviously got the dressing rooms backstage, and then downstairs there's more dressing rooms, and all the judging took place downstairs. And that dressing room, I suppose, there was like an area which is like a ballet studio, so the ceiling's a lot higher, there's mirrors everywhere. And the whole thing was you had to go down there and, you know, go across the room, and you've got like 10 minutes to be judged, so 5 minutes per costume. I think for us, it was more of a race, because I couldn't fit down those stairs, and I couldn't actually put on my costume until I was inside the judging room.
Yeah.
So we had, bless again, we had a friend who was competing from South Africa, and they said, okay, Maya, you go do the first 5 minutes of judging. I'm going to see if I can get Jeremy into his costume in the 5 minutes that you're getting judged. So that was just a race against time, really, to get me done, and I was, hobbled over, and by then, it's like, all right, cool, we got 5 minutes left. And then, they kind of ask a few questions. And that was it. I got out of the stilts in 5 minutes, which was like, oh, well, that sucked. So, yeah. I think one part of it is, getting assessed and poked and prodded by people around you about the kind of work that you've done. But I think I'm of the ethos and the mindset that if you are super proud of what you've done, and that's like, I've made this perfectly. I dare you to come and find a fault in this costume, because there is none. I think when you get to that level of contentment with your work, I don't think that there's any way that you could be, displeased by the result, regardless of what it is. Because, like you said before, and I really like the mindsets that both of you have in contrast to winning or losing, because they are both quite different ways of approaching it. But I think the way that I kind of think about it too, it's kind of similar to Lucy's, in which it's like, yeah, look, I'm going to manifest this. This is what I want. This is what I'm going to go after. And I know what I'm capable of, so that's what I'm going to put forward. But at the end of the day, the result of the competition is at the whim of the opinion of, 3 people or 4 people that you don't know. And at WCS, it was the opinion of, in this case, 8 or 9 people. And you might say, yeah, but their opinion means, this much to me, but they're a human being just like you and me. Sometimes they're going to have personal tastes or preferences. They're going to see things that matter more to them and less, for some other things. They might give more points for this canon and less for that canon. But it's just a personal preference, right? So, I think...
And everyone's got a specialty as well.
Yeah. And so, but even in the same way, say like, oh yeah, I'm really good at sewing. You still have an opinion about how good that armor looks. So, regardless of if you're a specialty or not, it's... the end of the day, the result is, and that's just it. It's just a collective opinion of a few people. So, don't let it cut into your self-worth if you feel like, oh, this sucked, or this person thought I was like this. They're just a few people at the end of the day. But because of that, unfortunately, I didn't have too much anxiety getting judged. It was like getting the costumes, like, all right, cool, now just, come at me, take me apart. But It was this, actually, I remember, okay, take these words into consideration. When you are in Japan, you're going to do the rehearsals on stage, you're going to see the stage and all this, but as soon as, like, the, announcement comes on, you had a taste of it this year as well, they're announcing, it's like, oh, next up, we got Lucy and Elle, they're doing One Piece, and like, woo, and you're like, oh fuck, here we go. Multiply that by about 10, and that's kind of what it was in Japan, just because I could not feel my stomach. I could not feel my leg. It was just all numb. It probably didn't help, didn't have much to eat. Wearing this harness that weighs, 10 kilos or something on my back.
High off the ground.
I'm like, I better not trip kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So, it's one of those things in which you said before, it's like, I kind of like that adrenaline rush. I kind of like that feeling of mild anxiety in the pit of your stomach. It's just, I don't know, it's the same thing, just intensified. So
was the theater really full? I always they don't cut to the audience a lot, and I'm always wondering, is it full? Are people sitting close? Are they sitting at the back?
That's a long competition.
That's a very good question. Very good question. It is a long competition. So think of how many competitors do we have this time? 10, 11 in the Australian round?
Oh yeah. There was 9 teams this year.
9 teams. Okay.
9.
So I think the year that I competed, we had 33 countries. So it's a long competition. It's a long competition, and obviously there's going to be people with kids. They're not going to stay there the whole time. Mm-hmm. They're very professional about it, and that's just like a theatre. They're only going to let you get out and move if it's between performances, kind of thing. But to answer your question, so imagine I assume everyone, both of you, and everyone listening in, you've been to see like a musical or something before at your theatre. And the musical, there's typically like multi-tiered floors of seats and stuff. I've got backstage videos that I haven't posted yet, but it's a grand theatre because everything's like golden and red in colour, and there's like immaculate detailing. So it's pretty cool. But obviously when you're on stage, it's in the dark. You can't see as much. But I'd say it's about, when we were performing, it was about 50% full. It was about 50% full. So the front few rows were chock full. The back was a bit more sporadic, and there was some people up in the bleachers, but so it's about half full. So you could, if you say, oh, can I crowd surf? You probably can't crowd surf. That ain't gonna work.
And is it when I was in Japan last time, I saw some shows where they were shows at a theme park, right?
Yeah.
It was the Sing show at in Osaka, and
oh my god,
my friends was the gorilla.
Yeah.
And we when he came on stage, we were we were cheering, we were so excited, and everyone else in the audience is sitting there very politely clapping, politely enjoying the show. And my friends who live there, they were like, oh yeah, in Japan people don't really unless it's a rock concert or something, people aren't cheering or clapping or going woo like we do in Australia. And I was like, what's that gonna be like in Japan? If we're because there's a line that I do in my skit, because I'm doing an idol character, where she's like, are you having fun? Let me hear you. And I'm I'm excited for it to just be silent.
Expect that, I think, just because they're not gonna be is this part of the show? Or is this I don't know. So
those cheers.
No, it is going to be a weird experience, so I think you'll have prepped yourself very well for that.
Yeah.
But, again, I don't know what to expect, really, because we did, a horror thing. You guys are doing an idol thing, so it's going to be a little bit different that way, so...
Yeah, we really wanted to pick your brain about all of the cool things that we're signing ourselves up for. Right now, it was probably the same for you, but the international competition has just finished the previous one.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of just waiting to hear about our year. They need to finish this year before they can move on to 2025, which makes total sense. So we're kind of we're getting to have our chat with the committee literally this afternoon. So we're oh, we've got all of these questions. We just want to know, what are we going to do? Where are we going to be? What should I bring? How does the travel component, how do we pack everything?
Yeah, right.
That's really, interesting.
It's funny, because there's going to be a degree of preparation that you can do, and it's going to be based on what they know from previous years, right? That's pretty self-explanatory. The biggest issue is a lot of things change, which needs to go through several layers of organisation, I suppose, before it gets approved. And then our poor organiser, Nat, only gets found out the very last minute. And so, all right, guys, we have to do the X, Y, Z now. And it really is just how good you guys are at adapting to change. Because, unfortunately, there were a lot of things that did happen that was unexpected, last minute. No one organised it. It stressed us so badly, just because I was like, we were never told about this. What the heck? And so it really is just dependent on, you guys look like good friends, and I hope you stay that way, because when it comes to these changes, there's a lot. Just be expected for, this is what I was told, why isn't it like this? That's going to happen a lot. So a lot of it is, and there's a lot of factors, there's stress, there's like, expectation on yourself, there's some people, there's ego, there's pride, there's a lot of different things. And depending on who it is, because I saw both sides, both people like, crying and consoling each other. I saw people like having screaming matches at each other. It's crazy, right? And it really is just dependent on yourselves as individuals, how you are at handling stress and sudden change, really. You guys probably, anyone listening as well, you probably have people in your lives who don't handle change very well, or don't handle stress very well, or you've probably been traveling with them once and you're like, I'm never going traveling with them again.
Yeah, we survived a trip to New Zealand. We'll be okay.
So it is weird, because when I was talking with Maya, we kind of had the same discussion. It's like it's weird that when we were doing it and after it finished, it's kind of like we're in a relationship in which you're so close to each other, you're doing so much together, and you've got no one to rely on except your partner during that entire time. A lot of the time. You could say, it's like, yeah, because it's like, oh, I'll call my fiance, or call my friends back home, or you just don't have time a lot of the times. And a lot of the time, it really is just like, oh, cool, you're going to go to this event in this costume, you're going to do X, Y, Z. You might have time to vlog or something, but there's no way in hell you've got time to pull out your phone and have a conversation just because you're so busy just doing stuff.
That was one of the things we've heard recently. That's one of the things we just found out recently. It's like, there's not even time to wash clothes. So we're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so, yeah, like, Matt's going to give you all the debriefing about, like, this is what to expect, blah, 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 blah. But the only thing I would probably say is, the events some will be the same, some will be different, but just prepare for, like, you're going to prepare yourselves as best as you can, which is, your costumes, make sure everything's spick and span. Some things, like, the biggest stress for us was, we had, like, a cannon, which we shot off a bunch of confetti and stuff. For Australia, and we couldn't do that in Japan because it's got gunpowder in it, and they've got a strong rule saying, oh, no gunpowder props. So we spent about 2 or 3 days going all around the city trying to find a suitable prop that would work for it.
Oh my gosh.
And so that we thought we found something. It's like, yes, we did it. And they're like, no, you can't do that. I was like, all right, try it. Let's buy this. Oh, you can't use that. So I had like these 3 or 4 fireworks cannons in my room at the end of the trip that I just didn't use. So at the end of the day, we had to use like these throw streamers, which was not our ideal or what we wanted to do. I think part of our mantra when we did the Australian competition was like, are we allowed to do it? I don't know. You know what? Stuff it. Let's do it. And if we get disqualified, then we'll let the entire crowd be like, why didn't they win? That was so good, right? But we had one talk with another couple of competitors over in WCS, and they dropped the line, which pretty much stuck with us. And I was like, look, you guys do what you want to do. I'm not going to say you can or can't do anything, but just keep in mind that, if they say, oh, that's not allowed or that's disqualified, you might affect Australia's chances, not this year, but in future, from coming back to WCS. And so that's something that stuck with us, and we're like, yeah, look, okay, fine. We're not going to do it. Okay. So it sucked, but it is what it is. We did what we wanted to do as best as we could, but end of the day, some things just don't work according to plan, and
the rules, the whole the massive rule book is really stressful for me. Like a girl can't read. Like I'll be read the whole thing, and then I'll be like, okay, cool, and then we'll make our skit, and then towards the end it will be like, oh, I just reread it, this is against the rules, and it's so it's really stressful. And I remember, so for this year, if you watched the live stream or you were in the audience, you would have seen we had this curtain. The original one that we got made, I got my friend Pengi. We did the photo shoot. I got my friend Pengi to design the background and Photoshop us on together, and then I got another friend to get it printed. So that backdrop curtain, I didn't even think, oh, there's a limitation to how big your backdrop could be. So that ended up being 4 meters long. Yeah. And the rule is that it can only be 2 meters long. So I had to cut it down, and I had to cut around the picture of myself and glue it closer to where I was supposed to be. And then I made it the exact dimensions, the curtain, the exact dimensions of how wide you could have the backdrop. And I was like, okay, cool. It's the exact dimensions. We're in the rules. We're good. And then I set it up, and I didn't take into consideration that the stand would count for like the thing.
width,
So the stand added to the width, and then we had to shrink it down even more. And I remember getting like a text like, hey, this is still too big. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. I had a show that night as well.
Yeah.
So I spent the whole show like doing my thing, sing. But in the back of my head, I was like, I need to get into the convention first thing tomorrow, and I need to make that thing shorter. And I did, and it was fine. Like it could be adjusted, but like it was like folded a little bit, and we really like reworked it and rejigged it. And it's just you just like absolutely like it does your head in, because you're like, I've read these rules, like I thought I had this all done and planned out, and then last minute it's like, hey, yeah, this is still too big. And you're like, oh my God. And you're like, I've read this rule book 1,000 times, I've like skimmed through it, and then it just like doesn't occur to you. But like you said with WCS, I think there's rule breaking isn't necessarily like, unless it's like a disqualifiable rule, you can kind of like you shouldn't, but like if there are rules that you've broken, if you're really pulling through on all these other aspects, and this rule's broken, but like you did do this thing really well, as long as it's like a safe thing, like, oh, maybe I was backstage for a second too long, but it really made that costume change look really good, like you're gonna lose points in that, but like the audience and like that wow factor is still gonna be taken into consideration. I agree. So much about WCS is like Drag Race in a way, where it's like there's it's a lot of it is opinion based, and there is like a point system.
Yes.
But there is this overarching, like, even though they didn't quite meet this rule, maybe you were backstage for a little bit too long, or maybe your backdrop was like 5 centimeters too wide or something, because you've done this all of these other amazing things, even though you've like maybe haven't hit this rule quite right, you still have a chance. You know? You really want to be following the rules, though. No, do not quote me, but like that's like the vibe. It's so subjective. It's something.
It is. Like you're on the same line of thinking as I am. In that I would be glad to lose a couple of points on. It's like, oh, backdrop is like slightly too wide, but if it meant that the intended effect of what I wanted to show on stage as a particular part of the skit was going to be just that much better, I'm like, yeah, just take those 2 points. Just take them. I don't need them. I'm going to earn them somewhere else, kind of thing. But, you know, have you guys ever done any judging for cosplay competitions yourself?
No. I've done very small
ones.
Yeah.
And as you've probably seen, you know, they have to make a criteria sheet to be like, oh, you know, 3 people in a room, who do you think should win? Like, I think it should be that. But, you know, they have to give them some numbers somewhere, right? But at the end of the day, it really is just 3 people in a room, who do I think should win? And
but these are my reasons.
Yeah, and you know, it might come down to the wire, where it's just like, oh, these guys were both spick and span, but this backdrop was, you know, 5 centimeters too big. Like, I don't think I've ever really heard of a circumstance in which it's gone that far, in which, just because the 5 centimeter difference, that's why you lost. It's like, I've never heard of that in my life. So, I don't think it's that bad, but it's more just to limit, that's like 2 meters bigger than it should be. You know, that's kind of where it needs to be considered.
It needs to fit in an elevator.
But you're so right, Jeremy. It's like these rules, like if it's down to the wire, these like completely perfect skits, but this person is using an aerosol backstage, which is against the rules, you know, or like their paint has a strong smell, like that's part of the rules. Like the paint can't give off a chemical smell.
It's there for the safety of everybody, really.
For the safety of everyone. Like those sorts of like those little like, this person broke the rule about how long you can be off stage. You know, those things will decide it. But at the same time, like if you're in this year and you guys have all of the judges are leather working judges, and each of them only know about leather, and for just some lucky reason your costume is full leather, they're gonna see it and they're gonna really like that technique because they can see it and understand it, and that's their niche. Like you could still pull through like a really good win, even though you may have like slightly, like maybe you jumped and like you had 2 feet off the ground at some point, or like something like that. As long as it's not like a disqualifiable safety offense, if it's like those like little technical rules, there is a little bit of like,
I'm gonna say it. Just break the rule. Just break it.
Guys, this is what we've learned. Break rules. Do not break rules. Follow the rule book. But if you do happen to like get to the end and you've like missed a tiny rule, try to fix it the best that you can. It's not gonna ruin your chances. But don't let it say you're out.
I think the best thing I can say is regardless, because again, with me and Maya, there were some things that we wish that we could have done if it was completely up to us, because there were some rules that we did not agree with completely. And me being the person I am, if I don't like, and I'm going to say if I don't like a law, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I will make that very clear. But if there's a rule, like particularly like at my job, or if there's some competition which there's some, a rule that doesn't make sense, I'm going to question it. I'm going to question it. And if I don't like it, I will, and someone can't give me a valid answer or reason as to why it's there. And if someone, like, I absolutely hate when someone says, oh, that's just the way it is. To me, that's not a valid reason for, a question that I'm asking someone. So, yeah, it's just my ethos. I would be happy to break those rules if that's the case. But what I would say to that is make sure you and your partner are on the same page. So you and Elle, you and Lucy are on the same page to whatever you want to do, because end of the day, I'm just going to say, put up straight, you're going to have supervisors, you're going to have coordinators, you're going to have stagehands, you're going to have past winners like myself who are going to give you all this advice, but end of the day, it's up to the two of you of what you want to do, right? So, if you think this is a good idea, but coordinator A or B says like, oh no, because people in the past have done this, like you do you, fam. Like that's the best I can say. Like don't listen too much to advice just because they've been there, done that. This is your year, this is your experience. You go out there and literally make it yours, because it's not their experience, it's not my experience. So
that is really good advice for sure.
Because I don't know, hopefully you haven't had too many people. Hopefully it's just been like, congratulations, I'm cheering for you, you guys have fun. I hope that's mostly what you'll get, because we got as well. You will get people going like, oh, in my year I did this, you should go and do this. This is the best experience and I highly recommend it and you should do it. You'd be like, yeah, thanks very much, but make your own decisions at the end of the day, because that's what's gonna, at the end of it, you'll be like, I'm glad I chose to do what I wanted to do. That's kind of what it's gonna be. So
I always love hearing other people's experiences, because WCS feels like every year people make it their own, like you said. I'm really hungry for feedback, and I always I feel like performing in any sort of sense is a part of bearing when you're upstage, you're more naked than you are in the shower. Like, you're really bearing yourself, and you're saying this is what I believe in and this is what I'm presenting. And when it comes to receiving feedback, it can feel really harsh and personal. Like, you've just come off stage and someone comes up to you and they're like, I think your stage presence could improve. And you've already you've born yourself, you've shown this really intimate part of yourself, or you've really put yourself out there in a way that's really scary. And then to receive feedback can be really hard. But I'm really pushing through that. And when people give you feedback, they're saying it because they want to see you improve and do better. And I'm always hungry to know how I can do better. And a huge part of why I love WCS so much is the judging feedback that they give you at the end. I'm some things are so specific. I remember last year I had a note that I really loved your costume, but those little straps that you had on your shoe, they were a little bit too thick. I think they should be a little bit thinner. And you're like, man, that is such a specific detail. Wow, everything was perfect, but the straps on my shoes were too thick. But I love that at the same time, because it's someone has really taken the care and the time to really look at what I've done and be like, this is a detail you missed, because I did miss it. I did make them too thick, and they're correct. And I think that receiving that feedback and doing better next time and constantly looking to improve is a big ethos of WCS in the way that it works, and wanting to achieve the world standards. So for me, personally, I really do want to do better. When people say oh, you should do this or you should be doing that, it's always good. I'm taking that on board. I'm that's maybe I should do that. But you're so right. At the end of the day, you can't let someone else govern what you put out there, because it is a representation of your own work, and you don't want to be doing something just because it's this is what you should be doing, Yeah.
How about you, Elle? What's your opinion on kind of getting feedback or suggestions from other people?
I mean, I'm like Lucy. I am hungry for feedback. It's one of those things that in previous years and other competitions and things, you just don't really get. Like it was something that you're like, well, I don't. Yeah, but how can I improve? I think for last year there was just a lot of faults, just in our skit and stuff like that. But we were doing it for fun. We weren't too stressed about winning or losing. We were just here for the vibes. But I think for that round, the feedback that I got felt a little bit like these are all very obvious things.
Yep.
It wasn't technical things. Like there was no feedback on, specific things like the strap was maybe too thick. It was a lot of very broad strokes.
Yeah.
So like reading my feedback and then reading Lucy's because we shared, so we could both sort of see each other's perspectives and see what we were told. I was like, I understand. Like these are all very, very true things that were said to us. But then I was like, okay, I can do those things. That's so easy. But it's like the minute details. I think, I did miss that. So like even if it is someone who comes up to me and it's just like, oh, I think you could have done this better, or you should have done this, I'd be like, yeah, cool. What else? What you got? Give me more.
I guess like because you already know, like there's some things that you're like, oh yeah, like I fucked
that
up.
I did.
Like,
you're right.
I'm aware. Like I already know I'm gonna get some feedback that I'm like, yeah, I ran out of time to do it, but it's gonna be better. Like you know what you like. You kind of go in expecting what you're gonna get, and like when you read the feedback and it's like, yeah, I knew this needed to be fixed, and then like the occasional like left field one, like oh, okay. Yes, I didn't even notice that. You're correct. Like. That kind of feedback can be really good. But like again, it's like the judges, like who's judging, and like some people like when they're expressing themselves want to do it more broad, and like, some people want to be more nitpicky. So it's really a personality thing. Yeah,
like it is quite useful to have those broad strokes of like, you're right, I will focus on this one other thing. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's nice. I think you've both got a very like broad, open-minded approach to getting feedback in that way. And I know. It's like I mentioned before, Lucy, when you're spoken like a true performer, when you're up on stage, it's being more naked than when you're in the shower kind of thing. But that expression itself is really good, and I think it hits home because I think it really depends who you ask it for. A lot of people will be, it's like, oh wow, this is Yaya Han, or this is Kamui Cosplay, they're giving me all this feedback or whatever kind of thing, and I think to certain people, they're like, yeah, I really appreciate that. And for yourselves, it's like, wow, thanks for picking out this small detail which I didn't see before. Like, I'm glad that there's another set of eyes who's decided to look at it close enough that they've noticed it. I think it's a mixed bag. And like I said, I think I really appreciate the way that you guys are both very open in receiving that kind of thing. For myself, it's different, I think. So it kind of runs two ways. So number one, because I know you mentioned before, you finish this performance on stage and then someone's telling like, oh, I reckon your stage presence was blah, 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 blah. So I think, number one, there's a time and place for it. If someone's just finished their performance and they're like riding on this high and they're like, yeah, just finished it, got off stage, at the time, all you should be doing, I think, is being like, oh my God, you guys did amazing. That was awesome. Like, phenomenal, inspiring, majestic. Couple of days later, it's calmed down at dinner. I noticed this, and I think, firstly, so number one, time and place, but number two, it should be a thing that is offered and requested, rather than be like, hey, look, I want to get better, I want to improve, could you give me some feedback on this, XYZ? Whenever someone has come up to me and been like, oh, I saw this, I reckon you should have done XYZ, I'm like, bro, I didn't ask. I really didn't even ask for it. So that's number one and two, and I think number three would really be, just at the end of the day, like you mentioned before, it is your own costume, but it is who you choose to take that feedback from. Because it could be like, yeah, someone I really respect, they're in the industry for a while, they know what they're doing, versus like, I don't know, Joe Smith, who's like, oh, I've watched 572 chapters of One Piece, and that is incorrect. It's like, bro, have you made a costume before? so
who are you?
But no,
I like to ask my friends who are not into the cosplay scene whether something, I will like show someone a skit or like get them to listen to my audio, and I'm like, be so for real with me. Is this cringe? Do you think this is like hard to listen to? And I love it hearing it from someone who's less involved, because they will just be like, they're just gonna be like, yeah, this is a bit embarrassing, like, because it's for that general ear, like you want it.
Yeah, there's no bias there. It's just like a very general opinion. That's a good thing to ask, actually. oh, I like that. It's like, someone who's not part of the community. It's like, what do you think of this? As someone who has no idea what's going on, do you understand it? Is it entertaining?
Yeah.
Big thoughts. I like that one. That's a top tip. And for anyone else, now that you guys are kind of role models, figureheads, for anyone who does want to enter competitions, anyone who is kind of striving to be Team Australia at some point in their life, or someone who is wanting to do a bigger competition, each of you, what kind of advice would you give to both, I would say, new people and also more experienced people?
Just looks right. I mean, it's one of those things that, like, you can't do anything until you do it. Like, you kind of just have to jump in. Getting as much knowledge as you can is always useful. So people who have done WCS, just watch the live streams. They're still available. At both the Australian rounds, and then watching, like, there's like YouTube clips of like each round. Find the winners. Find like maybe the series that you're doing as well. Just getting a grasp of what the expectations are, and what there is, because it could be that you're confident in your ability to make a costume, but you're like, I have never been on stage before, I don't know how to perform. That could be the thing that they're afraid of, like being able to immerse themselves in that styling. Even just going to people who have competed before to be like, what was it like, what should I expect? One of the things that I think a lot of people probably don't, and like we've seen, don't know about with WCS is that it is like it's the whole con. Never used to be. 2018 it was just a one-day thing. Now it is prejudging one day and rehearsals, and then it is the whole day is the comp. You do not get a lot of downtime, and being prepared to be like, all right, this is me, this is my whole thing. Normal competitions where they're just like walk-on competitions or like prejudged, but like it's like a fair few hours, but it's, you get a little bit of the day left. They would be a good one to start with, at least, so you do get the vibe of prejudging. You know what they look for. Having someone come up to you and like flip a seam can be a little bit jarring if you don't know that that's what they're gonna do to you. Even though they'll ask, they'll be like, "Can I touch you?" That's fine. But it is still like I didn't think you would look there. I didn't know that was gonna be seen with human eyes. So being able to like be aware of what the expectations are, asking other people, and maybe entering something a little bit lower level just to ease yourself into it, not going balls to the wall like Lucy did and jumping into WCS.
I will do the top competition,
man,
and then work my way down.
And you went, I did that. 3rd place and 1st place. Excuse me. And like, I mean, it can be quite daunting. Like, competitions have really ramped up, especially WCS. Like, we had originally 11 teams this year.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is going to probably be the standard, like having massive amounts in our heats, which I love. I love seeing that. And it, like, again, it's part of the reason why we have 2 days for this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there is so much to go through. But, like, I don't know. It's really heartwarming seeing the community come together. I'm old now. Like, I'm 30 this year. I'm aged in the cosplay community now. I'm next gen. So seeing all these like younger cosplayers coming into it and being like so excited and really open to just jump in, I love it. It makes me very happy. But I like, again, it's the community part that I really enjoy the most.
Yeah, that's
it's
cool.
like getting to just be in amongst it. It's the trauma bonding, I think. Yeah. Honestly, like being at rehearsals and just being like, you guys did so good, don't even worry about it. That thing, ignore it. It's fine, you're fine. Like, that's the thing. So it can be scary to jump in, but again, we've got a good community for it.
Yeah.
You just gotta do it. Ease yourself in, get your perspective on it good, but it's once you're in, it's great. It's very fun.
Yeah.
How would you listen?
My answer for this is like twofold. I have like the whimsical believe in yourself answer, and I also have like the functional answer.
Give us the real one. The whimsical one is the same. You believe in yourself. Go give it a try. It's okay. What's the real source?
Raw,
so
Lucy.
My WCS or any competition with a partner life hack is to create, and this is not mine, this is one that my friend Jenna told me when she entered WCS the same year that Ingrid and Alex won the Australian prelims. She and my also really good friend Roxy had a Facebook group, and it was just the two of them, and every time they worked on something they would upload the photos to the Facebook group, and they would say what they did, what fabric they used, and like that meant that by the time the build book had come around, all you have to do is scroll in this Facebook group and then you already have the description of what happened, and you just copy and paste it in.
Very cool.
It's like, that's my life hack. And you can also like pin dates that you're doing rehearsals, or you can create, what we did when we very first started, we created this big Excel spreadsheet of like, this is the schedule to the lead up to Smash, this is what we're going to try and accomplish within that time, and it's like pinned in the Facebook group. And then also you can have like meetings in it, and it's really useful for like that end of the competition mode. And now we have the same page, and it's called like WCS Hellscape. It's got a picture of this like costume that's like, I've got too much fucking shit on me. Like, and now I'm like, can I rechange it to be like WCS International Hellscape? Like, we can keep all of that stuff all in like the one place. And by the end of the competition, like at the beginning, you're like, I took this fabric and I cut it and I used this
Here
material.
are all the photos I have taken in the last 2 days.
Yeah, and then that's a good way of keeping each other accountable. So you're not sitting there at home sewing for a week going like, I don't even know if Elle's working on her costume right now, la la la. You can see like, oh, I did this today, I did that today. And it helps you stay motivated, because you look at it and you're like, oh shit, Elle's done this, I need to be caught up. And it like really keeps you going. So that's my like functional advice. Facebook group, it's really good.
Nice.
And then my like whimsical feel good advice is start as early as possible. Even if you think that your costumes aren't going to take that long, like start. We started in January, like for our stuff, and it just felt good. It felt really good. We would meet up once a week, and we would like only work on it once a week for a little bit, where it was just like, I'm making this bodysuit, oh, it's not working out, it's fucked, okay, I'm gonna remake it. And it's like, but that's fine because it's January. Like you have the time, and you're not like, well, I guess I have to use it because we're going on stage in 2 weeks. Like, the earlier you start, the more fun you're having as you're working on it. Like, we would watch movies, we would chat, sometimes we would just chat and not work on anything, but it was good just to like,
it's about the journey, it's about the process.
So start as early as possible. And also communication is really key, of like, I'm just having a bad week, I'm not going to be able to do anything. And just even expressing those little things can be really helpful for like, okay, I know where you're at. And I know if like I'm coming across a bit short, I'm going through this thing, totally, that's all good. And you can at least be in the same space with each other. And like, you're so right. Like, WCS is so much about like the partnership and like being able to be around each other all the time and lean on that person and rely on that person. And if you know where their head's at, you're gonna do better as a team, for sure.
That's really cute. I love that. Wholesome relationship. Just kind of, you know, we're in it, guys. We know what to do.
Lucy keeping me in check, thank God. Someone has to. Oh no, she's made it so much easier by like bringing all of this knowledge that I didn't have. Facebook group, insanely useful. So good. And just like her headspace has been so good.
It's good. Just one last thing I thought I'd ask as well is, and this happens to everybody, whether it be cosplay, competition, just being a human being in life, but you're obviously going to come into encounters with, you know, you're feeling, like I said, you're not feeling 100%, you're not feeling great. And just, I've got my own opinions too, but for yourselves, when you feel like, oh, I'm going to let them down if I don't do X, Y, Z.
Oh my God.
What are your thoughts behind that? Well, how do you kind of get moved past that, both as an individual and as a coordinated unit?
Oh yeah, I suffer from that really bad. I got mental health problems. But Lucy being like super level-headed in a crisis is like a massive part of that. So being able to lean on her and feel safe, and trusting her, like that I can lean on and she will give me like honest, like a safe space, to be like, hey, like I'm so sorry, I'm not doing well, but like I'm scared I'm gonna let you down. She's like, no, and she'll come back and she'll be like, no, I feel like that. You shut up. Like, everything's fine.
Yeah, Shanti has this like amazing, completely immaculate costume, and I'm here like, oh, this is chipping. Like, doesn't look good. And then she's like, I'm gonna let you down. I'm like, look at me in the eyes.
So leaning on each other has been massive. So I think for anyone else coming into it, like being able to be with someone you can trust and lean on is huge. And again, we've traveled internationally. We went to New Zealand. We hung out for a long time. We've been through that gambit, so I think that was a pretty good, like, oh, we'll be fine. Like, yeah, we're chill.
That's cool.
always the test of a relationship. Yeah.
Letting the other people down is a huge
yeah
thing in these competitions where it's like, you know, if I let myself down, if I feel like I don't do as well, then it's just on me when it's a solo thing. Like, yeah, I fucked up, so I didn't get this and that. But when it's like there's this other person that is also relying on me to do really well, that pressure of like, I'm gonna let you down. Like for me in a crisis, I'm just like, well, that's the way it is. Like we got to this point at the end of the day, it's like you can take a step back and be like, this is like a competition for fun. Like when we like, especially like the 2 days when you're like before you do the final performance and you're just like, I can't do it, I'm stressed, I'm not in the headspace, and you can just like, for me personally, I kind of handle that in this like, well, we're here now, it's nearly over, it's gonna be okay. I feel like there is definitely the pressure of like, I'm gonna like a big motivator is like, I don't want to let you down, I just want to keep doing well. And I think it's just like this trying not to get into the spiral of like feeling negative about it and being like, oh, I'm not perfect, I'm not up to scratch. I feel like there's like a certain point where you step back and you say, I've done the most that I can do and I'm proud of myself for what I have achieved. So if it's not the best, then I know I can do better next time. And like, you know, you have trust that your partner doesn't feel that way to you. It's you know that person isn't going to feel that way. So like knowing like, I know that Elle knows that I'm doing the best that I can, you know?
Yeah.
So that's really reassuring.
You guys compliment each other so well, and you're so kind to each other. I'm very excited to see, you know, what your journey is going to be all about.
It's all fun from here.
It's all fun. Stress. I mean, look, I think the feeling Mara and I had is like, by this stage, it's like, look, you've kind of got the ticket where you get to go overseas and have this amazing experience.
We did,
right?
That's the prize.
So, you know, for whatever happens now is just kind of a bonus. So, you guys are having an absolute blast. You guys are, you know, wonderful people. You're going to represent the country. So proud. I'm going to be cheering you on. But for anyone listening in who wants to follow your journeys, where can we find you online on social media?
I always feel I don't want to talk over you, so I'm always like, now you speak.
Okay. I honestly, I'm barely on social media, but if it's going to be anywhere, it's going to be Instagram. I'm Elle Norton on Instagram. I go by Welma Cosplay at the moment. That's most of what I sort of post these days. I'm going to try and be better about it now with WCS to actually update and, you know,
nice.
Post progress and things like that.
Yeah.
So they can find me.
And I am lovekey_cosplay on Instagram. That's usually where I'm posting like actual cosplay and formal content about my idol stuff as well. And then you can also follow me on Twitter if you want to see my shit posting and
That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for.
My account, which is just lovekey_. So
nice.
Catch me there.
So I'll put all of those links in the description underneath this post as usual, so go check them out, show them some love, show them your support, because they're going to be our reps for next year in Japan. Let's cheer them on. But thank you so much, guys, for joining us this episode. That's the full hour done already. Hopefully it was pretty cool, nice and chill. Good, just excellent. Just a chit chat.
So good. It was really good. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for having us. We really appreciate all of the wisdom and your like honest opinion and thoughts about the competition, and we hope to learn a lot more from you in the coming months as we prepare for our own competition.
Oh, you're very kind. Look, we'll learn from each other. It's going to be one of those things we bounce off. It'll be great.
Mutual exchange.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and everyone tuning in today. Thank you so much for coming this far and tuning in for another episode. But I appreciate you. They appreciate you. We'll see you next week. All right, guys, this is where we say bye and look at the camera. Bye.